The distant stars of the Andromeda Arm shimmered against the vast emptiness of space. On the edge of this spiral of light, the Zalarian outpost hung like a jewel, its crystalline structures reflecting the glow of the nearby nebula. It had been peaceful for centuries, a scientific station where the blue-skinned Zalarians studied cosmic phenomena away from the politics of the Galactic Concord. That peace shattered when the first myriad collective ships appeared on the horizon. The attack came without warning. The collective's ships, organic mechanical hybrids that pulsed with sickly green light, surrounded the outpost and opened fire. The station's minimal defenses crumbled within minutes. "Send the signal," shouted Chief Researcher Zeltor as the station rocked with another impact. His forearms worked frantically at the communication array while his assistants rushed to evacuation pods. "Make sure it reaches every corner of the galaxy." The emergency beacon activated, sending its message. Across thousands of light years. Zalarian outpost Lumina under attack by myriad collective forces. Civilian station, no military presence. Requesting immediate assistance, we cannot hold. The distress call spread outward, bouncing through relay stations and communication hubs. It reached the elegant spires of the Eleuthian homeworld, where the Council of Elders nodded gravely and promised to discuss potential responses at their next quarterly meeting. It reached the crystalline cities of the Vespiri, who formed a committee to analyze the strategic importance of the Zalarian outpost. It reached the gas cloud Nebulans, who dispersed their consciousness to consider all possible diplomatic approaches, and, on the very edge of known space, it reached Earth. Frank Miller sat in his office at the Human Space Command headquarters in Houston, reviewing reports from exploration vessels when his communication officer burst through the door. "Admiral, we've intercepted a distress signal," said the young lieutenant, holding out a data pad. Frank took it with a frown. At 63, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes, he had seen humanity go from its first tentative steps beyond the solar system to establishing colonies on 27 worlds. Still, the galaxy remained enormous, and humans were newcomers in a community of species that had been traveling the stars for millennia. "Zalarians," he muttered, reading the translation. "That's the blue folks with 4 arms, right?" "Yes, sir. They're about 3 weeks' travel at maximum speed." Frank's frown deepened. "Any word from the Galactic Concord?" "They've acknowledged receipt of the distress call. They're convening a preliminary response evaluation committee next month." "Next month?" Frank stood, his chair rolling back. "The message says they're under attack now." The lieutenant shifted uncomfortably. "That's standard Concord procedure, sir. They'll debate for a few months, then send observers, then draft a non-intervention treaty, then—" "I know how they work," Frank interrupted. He walked to the window overlooking the shipyard where 5 vessels of the human exploration fleet floated in their docks. His eyes fixed on the largest, the USS Dauntless, originally built as a mining vessel but retrofitted with weapons and shields after humanity's first hostile encounter with the Vrexian pirates. Frank made his decision. "Contact Captain Wright. Tell her to prepare the Dauntless for immediate departure." "Sir, the Concord regulations state that non-member species like us can't intervene, and the Concord invited us to observe their civilization, Lieutenant. I'm just giving us a closer look." Frank turned back to his desk and pressed a button. "Get me the President." 12 hours later, Captain Samantha Wright stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, watching her crew prepare for departure. At 35, Sam had already earned a reputation as one of humanity's finest ship commanders. Her short blonde hair was pulled back in a practical style, and her blue eyes missed nothing as she reviewed the mission parameters. All personnel accounted for. "Captain," reported Commander Lisa Stewart, her second in command, "including the civilian specialist you requested." Sam nodded. "What's our status on supplies?" "Medical bay is stocked for extended operations. Armory reports all tactical teams equipped. Engineering has spare parts for critical systems." "Good." Sam turned to the navigation station. "Plot a course for the Zalarian outpost, maximum sustainable speed." As the Dauntless broke from Earth's orbit, news of their mission spread throughout the Galactic Concord. On the central Concord station, representatives from hundreds of species gathered in an emergency session. "This is unprecedented," declared the Eleuthian ambassador, his silver robes shimmering as he gestured with elongated fingers. The humans are not authorized for military intervention. The Vesperi representative's crystalline form refracted light as she spoke. Their vessel is not even properly classified as a warship. It's a modified industrial craft with improvised weaponry. What concerns me, rumbled the cloud that represented the Nebulans, is their speed of response. No proper deliberation, no diplomatic outreach. They simply decided to go. In the back of the chamber, a junior diplomatic aide whispered to her colleague, "But isn't that the point of a distress signal? To get help quickly?" "You've been spending too much time with humans," her colleague replied. "Civilized species understand that proper procedures take precedence over emotional responses." The Dauntless pushed its engines beyond recommended limits, the ship's AI constantly adjusting to prevent system failures. In the crew quarters, 230 humans prepared for what might await them. Major Alan Powell briefed his security. Teams, men and women trained in combat, but who had never expected to fight an interstellar war. "We don't know what we're facing, but we know there are civilians in danger. That's all we need to know." In the medical bay, Dr. Nancy Peterson organized her staff and supplies. "Priority will be treating the Zilarians, so review your xenobiology. Their blood is copper-based, not iron. They have no lymphatic system but a secondary circulatory network for waste removal." Chief Engineer Victor Cruz ran diagnostics on the ship's makeshift weapons systems, mining lasers repurposed for combat, industrial shields not designed for military engagement. On the bridge, Sam received a transmission from a conquered peacekeeping vessel. "USS Dauntless," came the formal voice of the Eleuthian commander. "You are proceeding toward a zone of conflict without authorization. The conquered has not yet determined an appropriate response strategy. You must return to your territory immediately." Sam exchanged a glance with Lisa before responding. "We received a distress call. We're answering it." "That is not the protocol," insisted the Eleuthian. "A proper response requires careful consideration of all factors. The conquered will dispatch observers within the month to assess the situation." "There might not be anyone left to observe by then," Sam replied. "Dauntless out." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "Increase speed. We have people counting on us." As the human ship raced through the darkness toward a battle they weren't prepared for, word of their action spread. Throughout the galaxy, advanced civilizations watched in shock as these newcomers, barely out of their planetary cradle, hurled themselves toward danger. What they couldn't understand was why. Why would humans risk themselves for strangers? Why? Would they ignore protocols established over thousands of years? What drove them to act when logical analysis suggested waiting? The galaxy was about to find out. The Dauntless dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of blue light. Through the main view screen, Captain Sam Wright and her crew got their first look at the Zilarian system. What they saw made even the most seasoned officers pause. The system was on fire. The myriad collective ships swarmed around the third planet like angry insects. They were strange vessels, part machine and part living tissue, with cores that glowed sickly green. The planet below showed dark patches where cities once stood. The Zilarian orbital stations were either destroyed or captured, with collective forces feeding on their resources. "My God," Lisa Stewart whispered from her station beside the captain. Sam's face hardened. "How long until the Concord representatives arrive?" Communications specialist Eric Russell checked his console. "They're already here, Captain. A diplomatic vessel is in orbit on the far side of the planet. Open a channel." The view screen changed to show an Eleuthian in elaborate silver robes. Behind him stood representatives from other major conquered species, the crystalline form of a Vesperi, the swirling mist that contained a Nebulan consciousness, and several others Sam didn't recognize. "This is Ambassador Zorkel of the Galactic Conquered," the Eleuthian said. His long fingers moved in patterns of displeasure. "USS Dauntless, you were instructed not to enter this conflict zone." "We received a distress call," Sam replied simply. "As did we. The appropriate response teams have been assembled. We are currently documenting the situation and will draft a formal protest to the collective within 3 standard cycles. Eric muted the transmission and turned to Sam. Captain, I'm receiving updated scans. There are still millions of Zilarians alive on the surface, but the collective is targeting population centers. Sam nodded and signaled Eric to resume the transmission. Ambassador, while you're drafting your protest, those people are dying. We're going to help them. The Eleuthian's face showed shock, then something like pity. Captain Wright, your species is very young. You don't understand galactic protocols. The Conquered has managed peace among thousands of civilizations for millennia, through careful negotiation and non-intervention principles. What about protecting the innocent? Sam asked. Sometimes smaller conflicts must run their course. Intervening often causes greater long-term damage. The ambassador's voice softened. Your ship is not equipped for this battle. The collective has hundreds of vessels, each more advanced than yours. If you engage, you will be destroyed. Maybe, Sam admitted. But we have to try. She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. Battle stations, prepare to deploy ground. Teams. The Dauntless moved toward the planet, its engines pushing to maximum. On the bridge, Major Alan Powell joined the captain. My teams are ready, he said. His face was serious but calm. We've studied Zilarian physiology and brought appropriate medical supplies. Priority will be evacuating civilians from the attack zones. Sam nodded. Get your people to the landing craft, and Alan, she met his eyes. Be careful down there. Always. Am, Captain. As Powell left, the ship's sensors blared warnings. 3 collective vessels broke from their attack patterns and moved to intercept the Dauntless. They've noticed us, Lisa said, checking the tactical display. Weapons range in 45 seconds. Sam studied the approaching ships. What do we know about their weapon systems? Not much, Eric replied. The Concord database has limited information. They use some kind of energy beam that breaks down matter at the molecular level. Charming. Sam tapped the ship-wide communication. Dr. Peterson, prepare for casualties. Chief Cruz, I need everything you can give me on shields and weapons. Victor, Cruz's voice came through with his distinctive accent. Shields at maximum, Captain. I've rerouted power from non-essential systems. The mining lasers are charged, but they weren't designed for ship-to-ship combat. Do your best, Victor. The first collective ship fired. A green beam lanced out and struck the Dauntless's shields, which flared bright blue under the impact. Shields, holding at 80%, Lisa reported. But they're already adapting to our frequency. Sam leaned forward. Return fire. Target their propulsion systems. The Dauntless's repurposed mining lasers fired, cutting into the lead collective ship. There was a moment of silence, then the enemy vessel exploded in a burst of green fire. Everyone on the bridge stared in shock. Did we just destroy it with one shot? Eric asked. Lisa checked her readings. Confirmed. But that shouldn't have been possible with our weapons. Sam's eyes narrowed. They didn't expect us to fight back. They have no shields. A small, grim smile touched her lips. Looks like the Concord's policy of non-intervention has made the collective complacent. The other 2 ships changed course, pulling back to a safer distance. New signals appeared on the tactical display as more collective vessels broke off their attack on the planet to focus on this unexpected threat. They're regrouping, Lisa warned. At least 20 ships heading our way. Launch the landing craft while they're distracted, Sam ordered. Get our people on the ground. On the surface of the planet, Ambassador Lyria Ward and Communications Specialist Eric Russell found themselves in the ruins of what had once been a Zilarian city. Buildings of blue crystal lay shattered around them. The sky was dark with smoke and the flashes of weapons fire. Lyria had been sent by Earth's government to observe the Concord's peacekeeping mission. Now she found herself running alongside Major Powell's security teams as they searched for survivors. Over here, called one of the soldiers, a woman whose name tag read Olivia Bennett. She stood at the entrance to a collapsed building where several blue hands reached out from the rubble. The human team worked quickly, moving debris to free the trapped Zilarians. The aliens stared at their rescuers with 4 wide eyes, their blue skin pale with fear and shock. It's okay. Lyria said, using the translation device to speak their language. "We're here to help. We're from Earth." The eldest Zalarian, his face marked with age lines, looked confused. "Earth? Not conquered?" "No, we're humans. We came when we heard your distress call." The Zalarian seemed to sag with relief. "The conquered arrived days ago. They observe. They document. They do not help." Overhead, the battle continued. The Dauntless, outnumbered but unexpectedly effective, darted between collective ships, its mining lasers cutting through hulls never designed to face actual resistance. From their diplomatic vessel, the conquered representatives watched in horror and fascination. The Eleuthian ambassador could not comprehend what he was seeing. "This makes no logical sense," he told his colleagues. "The humans know they cannot win this battle. Why do they continue to fight? Why sacrifice themselves for the Zalarians?" The Vesperi representative's crystalline form shimmered with confusion. "And look at their tactics. They're drawing fire away from populated areas, putting their own vessel at risk to protect strangers." The Nebulan's misty form swirled faster, a sign of agitation. "They're breaking every protocol we established. No proper declarations, no diplomatic channels. They simply attacked." On the planet's surface, more human landing craft arrived, bringing medical teams and supplies. Dr. Nancy Peterson set up a field hospital in the ruins of a Zalarian temple. As she worked to treat the injured aliens, she noticed something strange about their wounds. "These aren't just battle injuries," she said to her assistant. "Some of these Zalarians have surgical cuts. Precise, deliberate." The Zalarian she was treating looked at her with frightened eyes. "They take parts," he whispered. "Not just resources from our world, parts from us." Nancy felt cold. "What do you mean? What parts?" "Neural tissue. They harvest it." Above them, the battle for the Zalarian world had only begun, and the galaxy was about to learn something new about humanity, something that would change everything. Dr. Nancy Peterson's discovery about the collective harvesting neural tissue spread quickly through the human rescue teams. She reported directly to Captain Sam Wright, her face grim on the video feed from the surface. "They're not just invading, Sam. They're farming these people," Nancy said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "I've examined over 30 patients with precise surgical cuts to their skulls. The Zalarians say the collective is harvesting their neural tissue." Sam's hands gripped the edge of her command chair. "For what purpose?" "Unknown. But it's methodical. They're taking specific parts of the brain." Sam turned to Eric Russell. "Contact the Concord representatives. They need to know about this." Minutes later, Ambassador Zorkel's face appeared on the main screen. His expression remained neutral as Sam explained what they had discovered. "We are aware of the harvesting," he said when she finished. Sam stared. "You're aware? For how long?" The Concord Observer Corps documented similar practices in 2 previous collective incursions. It's believed they used neural tissue for their biotechnology, and you didn't think this was worth mentioning or stopping? Sam couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. The Eleuthian's long fingers moved in a pattern that the translation software identified as regretful but accepting. "Captain Wright, the universe contains many horrors. The Conquered cannot intervene in every conflict. Our protocols require—" "Forget your protocols." Sam cut the transmission with a sharp gesture. She stood and addressed her bridge crew. "We need to find where they're processing the harvested tissue. That's likely their command center. If we can shut that down, we might be able to stop this." Lieutenant Kate Murphy spoke up from her station. "Captain, I've been monitoring their communications. There's a pattern to their ship movements. Every 6 hours, smaller vessels dock with a larger ship at these coordinates." She sent the information to the main screen. "That has to be it," Lisa Stewart said. "But it's deep in their fleet formation. We'd never reach it." Sam studied the tactical display, thinking. Then she opened a channel to engineering. "Victor, I need options. We have to disable a ship that's surrounded by the enemy fleet." "Chief," Engineer Victor Cruz scratched his beard as he considered the problem. "A direct assault would be suicide even with their lack of shields." He was quiet for a moment. "But what about their biotech? If they're partly organic, maybe we can create an electromagnetic pulse. Not strong enough to disable ships completely, but enough to disrupt their systems temporarily. How would we deliver it? We'd need to modify the ship's reactor to generate the pulse, but it would have to be at close range. Work on it, Sam ordered, and coordinate with Dr. Peterson. If these ships are part organic, maybe her medical knowledge can help. While Victor and Nancy worked on the pulse weapon, Major Alan Powell led another mission to the surface. This time they weren't just rescuing civilians. They were gathering intelligence. The human soldiers moved through the ruins of a once beautiful Zalarian city. They carried weapons that the Concord had deemed too primitive for galactic use: projectile guns, explosive devices, and combat knives. What the Concord failed to understand was that these primitive weapons were effective precisely because they were simple and direct. Olivia Bennett, the security team's sniper, set up on a high point to provide cover. Through her scope, she spotted movement. A group of collective soldiers dragging Zalarian prisoners toward a landing craft. "Major, we've got a situation," she reported over the comm. "They're taking more prisoners, about 300 meters north of your position." Powell signaled to his team and they changed direction. "How many hostiles?" "6 that I can see. Heavily armed." "Copy that. We're moving in. Take the shot if they try to leave." Powell's team approached silently, using the rubble for cover. The collective soldiers were tall, gray-skinned beings with technology integrated into their bodies. They showed no emotion as they handled their prisoners roughly, scanning each Zalarian's head with a handheld device. "They're selecting them based on brain scans," whispered one of Powell's team. Powell gave the signal, and the humans attacked from multiple directions. The collective soldiers were caught by surprise. They were used to harvesting helpless civilians, not facing trained fighters. The battle was brief and decisive. As they freed the captured Zalarians, one of them approached Powell. "You fight differently than the Concord peacekeepers we've seen in the past." "How so?" Powell asked, helping a young Zalarian child to safety. "You fight to win. They fight to maintain balance." The Zalarian looked at the human soldiers with their simple weapons and determined faces. "Why did you come here? Your world is not part of the conquered." Powell checked his ammunition while answering. "Because you asked for help." Back on the Dauntless, Victor Cruz and Nancy Peterson had developed their plan. Using the ship's reactor, they could generate an electromagnetic pulse specifically tuned to disrupt the organic components of the collective's biotechnology. "It won't destroy their ships," Victor explained to Captain Wright, "but it should paralyze them long enough for us to target their processing center." "The risk?" Sam asked. Nancy and Victor exchanged looks. "We'll need to get close, very close, to the processing ship," Nancy said. "The pulse will affect our systems too, though not as severely since we're fully mechanical, and generating it will drain almost all of our power." "How long will we be vulnerable?" 3 minutes minimum to restore essential systems. 5 for weapons," Victor replied. Sam nodded slowly. "So we'll be sitting ducks for at least 3 minutes in the middle of the enemy fleet." "Yes, Captain." Sam turned to Lisa Stewart. "Thoughts, Commander?" Lisa studied the tactical display. "It's risky, but it's our best shot at stopping the harvest. If we time it right, we might be able to use the planet's magnetic field for some cover during our recovery period." "Make the preparations," Sam ordered, "and contact Major Powell. I want him back on board before we try this." Word of the humans' plan reached the Concord observation vessel. Ambassador Zorkel requested an emergency meeting with Lyria Ward, who had returned to the Dauntless. "Ambassador Ward, you must stop your captain from this course of action," the Eleuthian said, his voice more agitated than she had ever heard from his species. "Interfering with the collective's processing ship violates 17 different non-intervention statutes." Lyria looked at the alien diplomat with disbelief. "They're cutting open people's heads and taking parts of their brains. How can you cite regulations at a time like this?" "Because regulations prevent greater chaos," the ambassador insisted. "Your species is too young to understand. These conflicts have happened before. They resolve themselves in time. At the cost of how many innocent lives? The Eleuthian's fingers moved in a pattern of cosmic perspective. In the grand scale of galactic history, these incidents are minor fluctuations. Lyria's expression hardened. Maybe that's what separates us from you. To humans, there's nothing minor about innocent people suffering when we can do something to help. She ended the call and went to the bridge where final preparations were underway. The Dauntless would make its run at the processing ship within the hour. Across the galaxy, news of the human intervention had spread. Species that had accepted the Concorde's policies of careful observation and minimal intervention for thousands of years watched in fascination and horror as these newcomers threw themselves into battle for strangers. What they couldn't understand, what truly horrified them, was not just the humans' willingness to fight but the reason behind it. A reason so simple that most advanced civilizations had forgotten it long ago. The Dauntless hung in space on the dark side of Zalaria's largest moon. The ship's systems were powered down to minimum levels to avoid detection as the crew made final preparations for their desperate mission. In the main conference room, Captain Sam Wright stood before a holographic display of the collective fleet. Key officers gathered around the table. Commander Lisa Stewart, Lieutenant Kate Murphy, Major Alan Powell, Dr. Nancy Peterson, and Chief Engineer Victor Cruz. "One last review," Sam said, her voice steady despite the tension. "Our target is this vessel." She pointed to a large ship at the center of the collective formation. "Intelligence from rescued Zalarians confirms this is their processing center, where they're storing and preparing the harvested neural tissue." Victor pointed to several marked locations on the display. "We'll approach from this vector, using the moon's gravity to accelerate. Once we're within range, we'll activate the pulse. Every system except life support and minimal thrusters will go offline for approximately 3 minutes. During that time, we'll be extremely vulnerable," Lisa added. "The collective ships will be affected more severely due to their organic components, but they'll recover too." "Which is why timing is critical," Kate said. She manipulated the display to show a simulation of their approach. "We'll have a narrow window to restart our weapon systems and target the processing center before they can regroup." Major Powell turned to his security teams. "If we succeed in disabling the processing center, we expect the collective to retreat. But if they board us instead, we'll defend the ship room by room if necessary." Sam looked at each officer in turn. "I won't lie to you. This is a high-risk mission with minimal chance of success. But every minute we wait, more Zalarians are harvested. We're their only hope." She straightened. "Return to your stations. We launch in 30 minutes. As the officers dispersed, Ambassador Lyria Ward entered the conference room. Her face showed the strain of the past days. "Captain, the Concorde representatives are demanding to speak with you," she said. "They've threatened sanctions against Earth if you proceed." Sam sighed. "What does Earth say?" "President Diane Carter's message came through an hour ago. She says..." Lyria checked her tablet, then smiled slightly. "She says, tell Captain Wright that Earth stands behind her decision. Help those people." Sam nodded, relief visible on her face. "Thank you, Ambassador." "Captain," Lyria hesitated, then continued, "I want to stay on the bridge during the mission. As Earth's official representative, I should witness this. It'll be dangerous." "I know." Sam studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. Report to the bridge in 20 minutes." Across the galaxy, the emergency session of the Galactic Concorde continued. Representatives from hundreds of species debated the human intervention with growing alarm. These humans are disrupting patterns of conflict resolution that have maintained stability for millennia, argued the Vesperi representative, her crystalline form pulsing with agitation. Their actions, while well-intentioned, show a dangerous lack of cosmic perspective, agreed the Nebulan delegate, its gaseous form swirling faster than normal. A small, furry representative from the Marillion species raised a paw. "But what about the Zalarians being harvested? Doesn't our founding charter say the Concorde was formed to protect all sentient life?" "Of course. the Eleuthian chairperson replied smoothly. But protection must be balanced against stability. A premature intervention often leads to escalation. So, we watch while people die because acting might make things worse, the Marillion asked. We observe and document so that future conflicts might be prevented through diplomatic channels, the chairperson corrected. The humans' approach is dangerously direct. News feeds from the Zalarian system played on screens throughout the chamber. They showed humans fighting alongside Zalarians, setting up medical stations and evacuating civilians from combat zones. The humans are now preparing some form of assault on the Collective Processing Center, reported an observer. Our analysis suggests it will likely fail, resulting in their destruction. Have we warned them of this assessment? Asked the Marillion representative. We have. They acknowledged receipt of our warning but did not alter their plans. Back on Earth, President Diane Carter faced her own crisis. Representatives from other human nations had gathered in an emergency session in Washington, D.C. Madam President, you've committed us to an alien war without consulting the international community, said the British Prime Minister, his face stern on the video screen. The Dauntless is an international vessel with crew from 23 nations, Carter replied calmly. And this isn't a war, it's a humanitarian mission. A humanitarian mission with weapons? Asked the French president skeptically. Sometimes helping people means fighting those who are hurting them, Carter said simply. Would you have us ignore a cry for help just because it came from beings with blue skin and 4 arms? The room fell silent. Lieutenant Commander Greg Harrison worked frantically in Earth's orbital command center. When the Dauntless had departed, he had begun organizing civilian merchant vessels to deliver supplies to Zalaria. We need medical equipment, food that Zalarians can digest, and construction materials, he told the captains of a dozen ships. The Conquered won't let you through official channels, so you'll need to use these alternate routes. One captain, an older woman with gray hair, looked concerned. The Conquered controls most transit points. How do we avoid them? Greg displayed a star chart. Humans have been exploring uncharted regions for decades. We've found paths the Conquered doesn't monitor. They're riskier, longer, but they'll get you there. Why go to all this trouble? Another captain asked. These aren't our people. Greg looked at him steadily. Because they asked for help. That's all the reason we need. On the Dauntless, final preparations were complete. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, but there was a new tension in the air. Everyone understood the stakes. All stations report. Ready, Captain? Lisa announced on the bridge. Sam took a deep breath. Communications, send one last message to the Collective. Tell them to withdraw from Zalarian space immediately or face the consequences. Eric sent the message. The response came quickly, a burst of garbled sounds that the computer translated as, "Your species is irrelevant. Withdraw or be harvested." Sam's expression hardened. "Helm, take us in. Maximum thrust." The Dauntless shot from behind the moon, engines glowing bright against the darkness of space. On screens throughout the ship, the enemy fleet grew larger as they approached. "Enemy vessels responding," Kate reported. "They're moving to intercept. Stay on course," Sam ordered. "All power to forward shields." The first enemy shot struck the Dauntless, making the ship shudder. Sam gripped her chair as the bridge lights flickered. "Shields at 60%, Lisa reported calmly. "Distance to target?" Sam asked. 30 seconds to optimal pulse range. Victor's voice came through the comm. Ambassador Lyria Ward watched from the back of the bridge, her knuckles white as she held onto a railing. Around her, the human crew worked with focused intensity despite the danger. They weren't the advanced, logical beings the Conquered valued. They were emotional, impulsive, and willing to risk everything for strangers. And in that moment, she understood what truly horrified the galaxy about humanity. It wasn't their weapons or their tactics, it was their empathy. As the Dauntless plunged toward the heart of the enemy fleet, the fate of the Zalarians, and humanity's place in the galaxy, hung in the balance. The Dauntless cut through space like an arrow, heading straight for the heart of the collective fleet. Enemy fire blazed around them, most deflected by their failing shields. "Shields at 20%, Lisa reported, her voice steady despite the impacts rocking the ship. Distance to pulse range? Sam asked, gripping her command chair as another hit shook the bridge. Victor's voice came through the comm. 10 seconds to optimal range, Captain. Sam opened the ship-wide channel. All hands brace for electromagnetic pulse. Power systems will fail temporarily. Prepare for complete reset. The largest collective ship, the processing center, loomed in the view screen. It was different from the others, with bulging sections that pulsed with a sickly green light. Smaller vessels clustered around it protectively. 5 seconds. Victor counted down from engineering. 4, 3, 2, 1. Activate the pulse, Sam ordered. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a wave of energy burst from the Dauntless in all directions. The lights went out. Every screen went dark. The ship's gentle hum fell silent. In the sudden darkness, Sam could hear her crew breathing. Emergency lights flickered on, casting red shadows across the bridge. Status? She asked. All systems offline except emergency life support, Lisa replied, checking a backup display. Exactly as planned. Through the viewports, they could see the collective ships drifting aimlessly. The pulse had hit their organic systems much harder than the fully mechanical Dauntless. Begin restart sequence, Sam ordered. Prioritize weapons and engines. The seconds ticked by in tense silence. Around them, the collective ships floated like dead things, but they wouldn't stay that way for long. Look. Lyria pointed at the processing center. Parts of it were dissolving. The organic sections were breaking down, coming apart in chunks. The pulse must have affected their containment systems, Nancy said over the comm. The neural tissue they harvested is destabilizing their biotech. Systems coming back online, Victor reported. Weapons in 30 seconds. But they didn't need weapons. As power returned to the Dauntless's sensors, they showed the collective fleet in disarray. The smaller ships were recovering, but the processing center continued to break apart. They're retreating, Kate announced as movement returned to the enemy vessels. Multiple ships jumping to faster than light. On the main screen, now functioning again, they watched as the collective fleet scattered. Some ships seemed to be malfunctioning, moving in erratic patterns. Others abandoned the damaged ones, accelerating away from Zelaria. They're leaving, Lisa said, surprise evident in her voice. We actually did it. A cheer went up from the crew, quickly silenced when Sam raised her hand. Maintain battle stations. This isn't over until they're all gone. She turned to Eric. Send a message to all Zalarian frequencies. Tell them the collective is retreating. Captain, Kate called from her station. I'm detecting multiple new ships entering the system. Concord signatures. Sam frowned. Now they show up. The Concord fleet was impressive, sleek vessels with advanced technology far beyond the Dauntless. They took up position around Zelaria, their weapons ready but not firing as the last collective ships fled. The comm system chimed. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Concord flagship, Eric reported. Put it through. The view screen showed a different Eleuthean than before, wearing elaborate military insignia. This is High Commander Telvor of the Galactic Concord Peacekeeping Force. We have arrived to secure this system. Sam couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Your timing is impeccable, Commander. The threat has already been eliminated. The Eleuthians' long fingers moved in a pattern that suggested discomfort. We have been monitoring the situation. Your intervention forced the Concord Council to accelerate our response timeline. Glad we could help, Sam replied dryly. The Council requests your presence at an emergency session. Your actions have significant implications for galactic stability. 6 days later, Captain Sam Wright stood before the Galactic Concord Council. The chamber was vast, with representatives from thousands of species arranged in ascending rings. The Dauntless crew and Earth's diplomatic team sat in a special section near the floor. The Eleuthian chairperson spoke first. Captain Wright, you stand before this council to answer for unauthorized military intervention in a conflict zone, violation of established non-intervention protocols, and disruption of the galactic order. Sam stood straight, her uniform pristine, despite the exhaustion evident on her face. I acted to save innocent lives from being harvested. If that violates your protocols, then perhaps your protocols need revision. A murmur ran through the chamber. Such directness was rarely heard in Concord proceedings. The Zilarians were being harvested for their neural tissue, Sam continued. A practice your representatives knew about but chose not to stop. Where I come from, standing by while innocents suffer isn't neutrality. It's complicity. You presume to judge practices established over thousands of years? The Vesperi representative said, her crystalline form flashing with indignation. Humans are newcomers to galactic society. You don't understand the delicate balance we maintain. Perhaps we don't, Sam agreed. But we understand right and wrong. We understand that when someone asks for help, you help them. From the Zilarian section, a delegate stood. His blue skin showed healing cuts, and his 4 arms moved in a formal gesture of respect. The humans saved our people, he said simply. While the Concord observed, they acted. We offer them permanent sanctuary in our system and alliance with Earth. The chamber erupted in shouts and arguments. The chairperson called for order repeatedly before the noise subsided. This is precisely the problem. The Nebulan representative's mist swirled agitatedly. Human intervention disrupts established patterns. Today they save the Zilarians. Tomorrow, who else will they decide needs saving? Ambassador Lyria Ward rose to stand beside Sam. Is that really what concerns you? That we might help too many people? What concerns us, the chairperson said carefully, is that humans act on emotion rather than reason. You make decisions based on immediate compassion rather than long-term stability. Yes, Lyria agreed. We do. Humans evolved as social creatures on a dangerous world. We survived because we helped each other. When we hear a cry for help, we respond. It's encoded in us so deeply that we can't ignore it, not even when it comes from beings with different biology, from different stars. The chamber fell silent. The council will deliberate, the chairperson finally said. 3 days of debate followed. The Concord was divided. Some species were horrified by human interventionism. Others were secretly impressed. A few, mostly younger, species or those who had suffered under collective attacks in the past, openly supported Earth. Finally, a decision was reached. Sam and Lyria stood again before the council. After much consideration, the chairperson announced, the Concord has created a new classification for humanity, protected predator species with intervention privileges. Sam raised an eyebrow. What does that mean? It means you may continue limited interventions under Concord supervision. Your species has shown itself to be both dangerous and useful. Word of the humans' actions spread throughout the galaxy. In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. The Dauntless began receiving transmissions. Thousands of them from hundreds of worlds. They were distress calls, not from civilizations under attack, but from peoples suffering under oppression. Species who had endured for generations while the Concord deliberated. They had heard about the humans' response to Zilaria, and now they had hope. As the Dauntless prepared to return to Earth, Captain Sam Wright read these messages with growing concern and determination. The galaxy had seen what humans were capable of, not just their weapons or their tactics, but their fundamental nature. Humanity wasn't just another intelligent species joining the community of stars. They were something many advanced civilizations had evolved beyond, beings who still acted on empathy, even when logic dictated otherwise. Before departing, Earth established its first embassy on the Concord Central Station. Above its entrance, they placed a simple message that sent chills through the galaxy's most powerful species. Send your distress signals to Earth. We're listening, and we will come.